Morning, boys and girls. We are going to be finishing up chapter 4, which we started just a few days ago, on the Punic Wars. Do you remember who Rome fought in the Punic Wars? Say Carthage. That's right. So Carthage was a city in northern Africa, and we learned about the first Punic War. And even though Rome had a much smaller navy, who won? Rome won the first Punic War. That's right. So Carthage had 500 fighting ships, and they were much more skilled technically and had more people. But Rome was smart, and they had interesting battle formations, which helped them win as well. Do you remember one of the formations? The shields on top and on the sides like a tortoise. So they were very clever with some battle strategies. We're going to find out about some ways that Carthage also was clever in battle. I'm going to present my screen for us to see the map again before we begin reading the chapter. So here's our map. We're going to be hearing about the Second Punic War today. Rome is right here. Carthage is on this tip of Africa. And the green shows what Rome conquered. This orange is what Carthage conquered. Okay, so Rome eventually conquered the whole Italian peninsula here by the end of the First Punic War. Let's find out what happens next in the Second Punic War. So going back to our book, the Second Punic War. Now Hannibal still wanted to fight Rome. In 219 BCE, he attacked a town that was friendly with Rome. This attack started the Second Punic War. Next, Hannibal decided to march his army from Spain to Italy. Remember that he'd been in Spain before. His father had fought in the First Punic War, and he is now the general. So this meant crossing wide rivers and the tall snow-covered mountains. Now the Alps are a famous mountain range going across the continent of Europe. So that was a good natural protection or barrier. Let's see, here we go. And this map you can more easily see, here's the Alps. So that ended up being a good natural barrier because Italy and Rome, they were protected by these Alps, making it really hard for somebody to cross over and enter the country. So let's go back over to our book. And here is another map with the specific route that Hannibal and his army took. So he started on this part of Spain that Carthage had conquered in the First Punic War. And this red line shows his route. He went through one mountain range, and over here are the Alps. There's also the Rhine River that we've learned about. So he was crossing over the Alps, which is a much harder task than you would think. And over here is Rome, circling around to the southern part of Italy. So this is, the green shows what lands Rome had by 220 BCE. Okay, so let's keep in mind the timing of this. The First Punic War started in about 264 BCE. In that time, BCE, the numbers actually go backwards. So from 264, the numbers get smaller as it gets more current. So that war was around 20 years long. And then it was about 20 years before this Second Punic War started. Now, it would be hard for the soldiers to cross these rivers and mountains. Hannibal also had to get thousands of horses and dozens of elephants across these barriers. Now, a barrier is something that is in the way. So it could be anything that is really in your way. In this case, there's the natural barrier of the mountains that are in the way of Hannibal and his army going to where they want in Rome. The Carthaginian army used African elephants in battle. Remember, Carthage was in Africa. So they used those elephants in battle. Most of their enemies in Europe had never seen elephants before, and they were terrified by them. And elephants looming overhead, these giant creatures, would be very frightening for someone who's never seen anything like that. The Romans thought that no army would ever be able to cross the rugged Alps, but they were wrong. The Carthaginians made it over the Alps and onto the Italian peninsula and made it into, this is the Italian peninsula, called a peninsula since it is a part that sticks out into water and surrounded by water on almost all sides. So the crossing of the Alps took 15 hard days, and Hannibal lost almost half of his men. About half of the men died. Hannibal fought the Romans on the Italian peninsula for the next 16 years. So it took 15 days to cross, but then 16 years of fighting once he made it over the other side. So he won great battles, but the Romans would not give up. Eventually, the Romans sent an army to attack Carthage. So there's Carthaginians, including Hannibal here, but now they're sending some Romans over to Carthage itself to fight there. Outside Carthage, Hannibal met a Roman army led by General Scipio. Can you say Scipio? There's that two letters phonogram, like science. Scipio Africanus. And actually, in Latin, you usually say it, us Africanus. The Roman army won the battle. Now, Carthage surrendered, but Hannibal continued to fight. There's his elephants. Look at how large they are compared to a Roman soldier. So even though Carthage lost, Hannibal is not giving up. He moved from place to place, staying away from the Romans. When the Romans finally trapped him, Hannibal refused to surrender. Instead, he killed himself. So he did that because it would have been he would have been ashamed to have been captured by them, and they would have turned him into like a servant or slave. And so he killed himself rather than becoming part of Rome and to be a slave to them. Let me double check to see if we're going to be reading the next part today. Looks like we need to finish up page 27, which is here. So actually, we are going to read, oh, no, actually, the third Punic War is so short, there's only this one little section. Sorry about that. Now, Hannibal refused to surrender, but there were still some Carthaginians who were not done with Rome yet. So after the Second Punic War, Rome and Carthage were at peace for more than 50 years. Then, in 149 BCE, the third, and we know this is going to be the final, Punic War began. The Romans sent a huge army to Africa. The fighting lasted 3 years. It says only 3 years, but they're saying only because that was compared to about 16 years of fighting before. In the end, the Romans destroyed the city of Carthage. They conquered it before, but now it's left. The Carthaginians who were not killed were enslaved. So, who won the Third Punic War? Rome, exactly. And that was the end of all of the battles between Rome and Carthage. How many of these wars did Rome win? All 3 of them. Even though in the second one, there would have been a lot of Romans who died. In all 3 of these wars, a lot of Romans died. But they were the actual winner of all 3 of these wars. And they ended up conquering that land. So everything that was Carthage's land, all the Carthaginian land, is now Roman land. So that was a common way that people started to expand their empire. And we're going to see with Rome that through winning wars, they were able to have more and more land. And that's how it's going to become much more of an empire than it is in this picture that we're seeing. So they're going to start expanding more and more with more wars that they have won. So that is the end of this chapter. We are going to hear about the famous Julius Caesar in the next chapter. So kind of getting back into the Roman government and hearing about how it's really going to transition. We heard about the dictator who is in charge for 6 months, and then there were the Senate members and the 2 consuls, but eventually it's going to change a little bit. So we'll see what that is all about the next time we read. You will have some notes to take on this later, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.